Welcome back to another episode here on the Hard to Hustle podcast. Our next guest says travel is fatal to hatred. I've lived on 5 continents, and I can tell you, exposure changes everything. That's what we're trying to give our kids, says Duane. Duane, thank you so much for being here, man. I know it's been some time since we've last chatted, but I'm excited to just know more about the organization. If you could just tell us a little bit more of what organization you lead and the role of your organization.
Great. Yeah, I am the CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Northern Indiana Corridor, and that is an organization that we have 38 sites across 6 counties. And we are a part of a larger movement of Boys and Girls Clubs across the country. That's a national organization, and we're a federated model, so that means that we can be independent and run our clubs the way we see fit, that fits our community. And so as I think about our community, our mission is to inspire and enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as productive and responsible citizens. And so that's a broad mission statement, but what that looks like on the ground for us is how can we give the kids in our community, whether it be the South Bend area or some of our rural areas, in Logansport, Indiana, how can we give them experiences, expose them to new things, and help them academically to be able to be the best they can be when they graduate from school?
I love that, Dwayne. And to really kind of go backwards, man, you lived in more places before 18 than most people do in a lifetime. So let's start with how you actually shaped into the leader you are today. You were also in the military, which is
Yes.
why you've been able to travel so much and live, so many different places. What did military service even teach you that you can carry into that nonprofit leadership?
What I would say, the best thing about the leadership in the military, number one, was you don't get to choose who works for you, and you don't get to choose who you work for. And so, but the mandate remains the same. You have to get along and you have to focus on the mission. And so there's no time for pettiness. There's no time for your own individual, agendas. It's really about focusing in on the mission and working with people no matter what. So I think about even in the nonprofit world, which is mission driven. It's not necessarily profit driven, even though you do want to make a profit or to be financially solvent, but it's really about the mission. And I am constantly reminded that everything I do as a leader is to drive the people that are on my team, that we are here about the mission, no deviation from that. Let's not get caught up in the small things, and let's figure out how we can work together. And I'll add another thing in terms of being in the military. Because I was in the military and exposed to so many different kinds of people at so many different stages, places in their life, it allowed me to be able to interact with people who are very different than me, and then kind of learn the tools of the trade, if you will, of how we can interact with many different people regardless of their background.
Man, how many years did you do?
I did 11 years in the Air Force.
We appreciate your service, man.
Thank
11
you.
years. Yeah, that's a lot of years. Like you mentioned, you were able to really see so much from the worldview, right? Seeing things that worldview that can imagine really shape that leadership that you have today. How did you pivot, man? 11 years, and then you
Yes.
go out into society, completely different. I can imagine. I always hear those that kind of spend a lot of time in the military. It's a hard adjustment, but you were able to pivot from military education and put that back into the youth development work. Like, how did you get that done?
So I think one of my first big lessons, leaving the military as a leader and then transitioning into leadership in a nonprofit, is I worked for the state of Washington, and the military can be very top down, give orders kind of a thing. And I remember my first order that I gave someone outside the military. She just kind of laughed at me. She was an older lady, laughed at me and said, "Oh, you're so cute." And then she went on to do about her business. And I had to learn, okay, it's not about the fact that I get it. How can I convince her to do what she needs to do anyways? And it's by building relationships. And so I think how I was able to bridge the gap is really spend time investing in building a relationship, because it's so that we can accomplish the mission together. The military mandated that you do that, build relationships to accomplish the mission together. I just had to do it in a more organic way. So that was, I think, the really key to really transitioning from a military style leadership to leadership in the nonprofit.
You know, something else that's interesting is that you're leading this organization and ideally you've never really attended it as a kid, which a lot would say is really powerful. A lot of leaders usually go back because they had some sort of, relationship and connection to it. Why does this mission inspire, enable all kids, especially those who need us most, as you mentioned a little earlier, resonate so deeply with your personal story?
Because I I've had the privilege, again, I tie a lot of back to my military and my military experience, as well as my growing up as a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force as well. And what I saw in the military, it didn't matter if you were a private's kid or a colonel's kid, you had access. So your socioeconomic levels did not matter. And so for me, it's really important that we believe the narrative that every single kid can succeed, regardless of their background, regardless of their socioeconomic status, or even their family. And I think there's a narrative in society that wants to label these kids, however you label them, as they're the ones who are going to be perpetual problems in the society. And I just believe I want every kid to know that they can succeed. But you know what?
Yeah.
They also have the choice to choose not to succeed. But I want them to know that they can, because that's what I saw.
And that's powerful. I love that you decided to see that. Actually, we were just talking to a neighbor yesterday, kind of almost in a similar sense, but we were saying how two individuals that are great friends could sit in a room and bicker about how their kid is going to this school and make someone else feel less than because they're going to this school. And ideally, as you mentioned, they both have the same opportunity, right? At the end of the day,
Correct.
they're going to make their own life decisions. And I love that we are in a place where we get to really work with our youth and allow them to see these opportunities so they understand when it's time to make choices. You do have choices to make, and look what happens when you go down this route. If you're surround yourself with these people, and you can also see what it looks like if you're not doing it right. And I'm one of those young individuals that I come from a background where I was sexually abused and adopted, and I tell that story all the time because I also had a choice. A lot of people that grow up in homes of seven, okay, where he didn't feel seen or heard. I could have made the decision to live a different life.
That's right.
But I took all that and I surrounded myself with good people, had good friends, and I had good mentors, Dwayne, that I can imagine were just like you, that just wanted to pour into our youth. So I definitely appreciate it, man. Not only do you sit here and do 11 years for us, then you want to go into this nonprofit space of helping, young individuals that just
Right.
kind of speaks on who you are. So, what is the irony of now leading the Boys and Girls Club when you never went to one yourself?
It gives me, quite frankly, it gives me hope, because I am one who believes that there are many avenues to success. There are many people who are successful who never went to the Boys and Girls Club. There's not a Boys and Girls Club in every community. It's just one vehicle, it's just one tool. For some it might be the Salvation Army, others it might be the YMCA, others it might be just Martin Luther King Community Center somewhere. The key to all of this is, I'm convinced, if you have good programmings, regardless of the name of your building, and you have great mentors. You mentioned you had mentors. If you have mentors who are supportive, who are encouraging, who will challenge you and then support you along the way, that is really the key. And those are things, even though I never had a Boys and Girls Club or never attended, I had great mentors and I went through great programming to get me along the way.
Man, I can recall, actually, I was just at the school district, and one of the chairs now used to be my old English teacher. And I'm seeing her as I'm driving out of the parking lot. I did try to go to her office; she wasn't there. But as I'm seeing her as we're driving, past each other, and she just stops traffic just to say, "Ephraim, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm just so happy to know." And this is a teacher that I was giving her a run for her money. Okay, let me tell you, Dwayne, I definitely was just this kid that I wouldn't say I was a bad kid. That's what happens. Is a lot of time we do get the stigma that we're just bad kids,
Yep.
right? That we're not smart enough. I even had a counselor tell me, Ephraim, you might as well get a 9 to 5 because school wasn't. It's not for you, right? Because
Right.
that's just the way that she was seeing my life for me. But there's people as that teacher that's seen so much in me and realize that wait a minute, there's something deeper than you just showing out at school, and
Right.
she always took that time to have those conversations. And you know what, I remember the conversations, and one in particular that says, hey Ephraim, show me your 5 friends, I will show you where your life is going to head. And I seen that firsthand happen to my friend,
Wow.
where he ended up doing 5 years in prison because even though he had a full ride scholarship, number one wrestler in the state, his 5 friends just weren't the supportive kind that you wanted him around.
Right.
So what you're saying, man, is like we could really change the mindset. I think to what probably said earlier to you on the call before this one is that everybody life could change by a story, by a person, by something they just see,
Right.
which is why I love representation even matters, right? You
It does.
being a leader of color, a male leader of color, not so many times you get to see that male of color running an organization. And
Right.
what I love about you is you're not sitting here in a suit and tie, because I don't think that works when we want to talk about being relatable.
Right.
This is it. We don't got to be in a suit
I
and
agree.
tie, always a nice little blazer.
That's right. I have one over there just in case I need one, but this is me normally.
No, I love it, man. No, I love it. And you just have this really entrepreneurial thinking, right? A result, efficiency, growth, and staying mission focused. How do you balance all of that?
So I'm glad you used the word efficiency because I think that is really something that I really try to lean on. And what that means for me is how do I get the most out of what I want to accomplish the most efficient way without how do I, the highest yield of impact and the smallest amount of labor. And I think that is really how I try to do that. And a lot of it is, again, I'm going to try to use a Lean Six Sigma term, which is the voice of the customer. And so I try to focus my attention not what I want for people, but on what people want for themselves. So if I can provide support and guidance, maybe just a little bit of nudging if they need it, but it's getting them because when part of that momentum is that when people start accomplishing what they want to accomplish versus what maybe I define as success for someone or their parents or their history defined for it, to me, that's how you get the greatest impact when people start using their own momentum to get to where they want to go.
Hey, real quick, if you enjoying the podcast, we first want to say thank you. And we also just want to give you a little insight of what we're up to at Francis. Some don't even realize that we're working with organizations to help them use AI to create that real human communication experiences, whether that's actually supporting your families, those patients, or the entire community. We're actually creating tech that connects. Check it out, francis.ai. Just because you said that, I think this is a really good question for you, Dwayne, is that people get into an organization, especially those young leaders that may be watching. They get into an organization, they get into a position. As you mentioned, they have this vision. They see what success actually looks like in helping others. But then you have to also make the board believe in that vision. How do you help someone believe in the vision when you're sitting at the seat? Maybe you were on the board for 5 years and you were able to see things from a different perspective, but they're still not seeing the vision. How do you help someone?
I think a true visionary, and you mentioned an entrepreneur. So let's go with an entrepreneur, and this is how you do it. An innovative entrepreneur, people don't see the vision, but what they do see is success. They see a viable product, they see a viable service. I mean, who'd have thought, I don't know, 20 years ago, that we'd be getting into a car because of an app with a complete stranger, Uber or Lyft or whichever one. But
Yeah.
someone saw it, someone saw the success, and people buy into the success. What I have learned I tend to be a very visionary leader, take risks. I don't need to convince anyone of the vision. I need to convince them of the success. And so once they see results, then they're all in.
Got it. Yeah, no, I definitely do agree, man. I just feel like so many people they get stuck in that place of trying to get people on board, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you've seen it time and time again.
Yep.
It is not it's not for everyone.
No.
Okay, it is not easy, as you mentioned. That success really does play a factor. I want to talk about innovation though, because you mentioned just because you sparked that talking about Uber, Lyft, and you know the technology aspect. You've been clear that AI won't replace leaders, and I think we all can agree, or I wouldn't say all of us agree, most of us
Right.
can agree. But leaders who refuse to adapt will be replaced, and
Right.
I'm 100% seeing that. Is that when you talk to someone about something as simple as ChatGPT, how like, oh no, I would never do that. I'm like, that's like you saying no to the internet when it
Right.
first, you know, became a thing. How are you practically using AI at the Boys and Girls Club today? Because I think it's always fascinating on how so many different industries are using AI.
So AI is a great example of getting the biggest impact with the least amount of labor. So for example, if I need to write a job description, or if I need to write a letter of support for a partner organization, I will put in some of the key points that I want to remember, and I will say, write me a letter of support because this organization does 5 or 6 bullet points, and it'll fill it in. Or I'll get a very long email and I'll say summarize this and respond with a positive tone, and then again, because the goal is not to show how smart I am, it's to give someone's response. And so the smart, I would say this, how smart is being defined now is, can you ask good questions? And AI is about asking good question and good prompts. So that's how I use it. It makes my life so much easier.
What I always have to say is it allows you to buy back time, one,
Yep.
to do the things that you love more. Like who
Yes.
really loves to do Dwayne? I'm pretty sure never, and whether military or the nonprofit space, did you ever want to do admin work? Did you ever really want to take notes? I'm a let's have a conversation. Can someone
Yes.
take note for us, please? Because I just
Yeah.
want to be in tune what we're doing. So I love you do not see it often the way that people are excited and happy to talk about AI the
Right.
way that you're talking about it because there is that fear around it of you know how it's changing our youth,
Right.
how it's taking jobs, but I think it's creating jobs. I think it's making jobs
Yes.
easier. As you mentioned,
Yes.
efficiency earlier allows you to be way more efficient in the day to day and
Right.
allows us to really be happy when we go to work because if we can give AI the things we don't like and we get to work doing the things that we love, which I think it's happening in the healthcare once they can really, you know, implement AI at that level, that yeah, you'll be happy to go and do your job that you went to school for and
That's
spent
correct.
60, 70,000, you know, dollars to
Right.
get an education on. Um, but some would say that the youth is not good for the youth. What do you think on that, Dwayne?
It's like with anything. I mean, there's great things about the internet. There's some bad things about the internet. It's about
Hmm.
making responsible choices. And so I think about AI in that regard. Um, if you train students to make responsible choices that will benefit them, say no to those things that will hurt them and harm them, then then I think AI is just fine. But it's like with anything, it's the internet. It's
Yeah.
it's you. How do you be responsible with that, and or anything?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like you said, it is completely the internet. They can get those same answers just
Yep.
Googling it if they really wanted to. This just gives it to them faster,
Right.
if anything. But what I do love that I've actually been seeing too for our youth is that mental health being such a prominent word that people are using every day for the rightful reasons. You're starting to see these young kids also use ChatGPT as that therapist, getting some
Right.
answers. And I think people's fear is that the answers be very completely off what they should be receiving.
Right.
But as you mentioned, is the prompt. You know,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, we still have to educate these kids on what that
Right.
actually looks like. Education is everything. It's like sending your kids to school and think that they're just going to learn life, and they don't.
Right. That's
That goes.
exactly right.
That's home. That is the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
You know that is the YMCA. That is those community partners that really are pouring into. But I tell you, man, I was one that my mom wasn't having these life conversations. I had to grow up and learn life. But we are, as parents, should be really pouring into our kids on making the right decisions, on how to utilize some of these tools, not expecting someone else to teach us,
That's
or
right.
our kids, because life cultural is very different. There's so many different things that play a factor in it, man. And I love that you're not shying away from AI, and you can really see the benefit. Because to me, it is the internet when the internet was a thing, and it's to me what social media was when it became a thing.
That's correct.
You know,
Yep. Yep.
man, the way this is a good conversation, man. I'm
Likewise.
really excited. Yeah, yeah, this is really good.
Yeah.
I want to kind of talk about another great thing that I appreciate about you is that you have lived globally, and many kids haven't really left their backyard, their block,
Right.
which is such a massive gap. How are you creating exposure? You talked about how your organization, because the community that you live in, you can kind of curate it to what the need is. How are you helping these kids really see opportunities that expand out of their block, out of their backyards?
So just not too far from us here is the University of Notre Dame. And so that has been a place that kind of feels like a barrier to so many people, the
Hmm.
prestigious university. So we work really hard at getting them trips on campus, which begins to open up a large role, not just to see what a campus looks like, but there is the Jordan Hall of Science has this kind of this amazing observatory in there, so they can just kind of see the world beyond there. They can meet different people from different places around the world. We also do field trips, college visits, and I think college visits are outside. Like we go to HBCU, take kids on those visits. We take them. Chicago's close to us, so again, beginning to expose them to those different things. I used to work for a youth development organization. We took kids to Germany. We took kids to Africa on different trips. Hopefully, one day we'll be able to do all of that. We have so many kids that we serve. It's kind of hard to do it for all, but there's every opportunity to blend a career choice, college or whatever the case may be, with a people exposure. Those are the two things that I'm really trying to create, to begin to get them to see the world outside of their neighborhood.
You know what's funny, Dwayne, is that you're hitting on so many things that I can really resonate with, right? So I've been blessed. God has really blessed me through my life. Even though I had all of these things that I had to overcome, I think as I became a young adult, God has really blessed me and kind of put me in situations that people would never imagine. So I remember being on the show Undercover Boss. They wanted me to fly me out to the convention that was in San Francisco. So I'm leaving my backyard. I grew up in Pine Hills, a place they now call Crime Hills, right? But I was able to then see San Francisco and see, oh my God, something so beautiful as San Francisco, and seeing what that life looked like outside of the norm. And that got me so excited to always want to say, you know what, one day I want to travel. I want to be able to, do what I do on somebody else's dime. And I've had those opportunities, but it all started because there was that one opportunity where I was able to travel. I was a couple of years ago, which is how I got into the nonprofit space, was I was mentoring young adults and I was working at the school that I graduated from. So they took the kids to, what we took them to, we took them to FAMU. We took them to Florida State. They were able to go to see the
Oh wow.
football games and just imagine what the football games look like.
Yeah.
So they got to see something again different. These kids are growing up in the hood. They got to
Right.
see these prestigious schools. That was the first time that I also got a college tour, and I'm like, wow, this
Yeah.
is cool.
Yeah.
And teachers coming and having conversations. We're able to see basketball games, football games, and I think it does change somebody's mindset when
It does.
if they never see it or never hear it, how are they supposed to know about it?
Right.
You guys are telling them and you guys are showing them. It
Right.
automatically, I'm a big believer that it's not just one scholarship. Like a scholarship is cool, but if you can sit here and get 100 kids in a room and get them a good speaker, someone that can speak to them, someone that looks like them,
Right.
man, you can sit here off of the same thing that you're going to pay a scholarship, influence so many minds in that room, all
Absolutely.
because there's a good storyteller there. Like I'm a
Right.
big believer in that. And
Yep.
that's really where you're pouring a lot into is that these kids, their mindset gets shifted by experiences, by conversations, by, opportunities.
Right.
I mean, Dwayne, doing some cool stuff,
Yeah.
man. Did
I'm
you ever
trying.
you ever
Yeah.
think you'll be here?
I never did. I never thought I'd be here. I just knew, and that's because I'm someone who says yes. If there's an opportunity, I'm not going to say no to an opportunity. So, did I map it out and plan it out? Nope. But I said yes, and so here I am.
And you do so many different things. I think we talked about horse consulting,
Yes.
right? Is that
Yeah.
correct? I can imagine that also connects to youth leadership development. Yeah.
It really does, and it ties into my philosophy of leadership. You know, you talk about horsemanship is a training method that doesn't use any harmful things to beat the horse or harm the horse. It really the process is establishing a relationship with the horse, and and you get it to the point where they trust you. You get them to the point where they really see you as the one in charge, and then that horse, you could take off the rope, the halter, and that horse will follow you around because you've bonded. And I think that is how, you don't have to be cruel or brutal. Leadership should never be cruel nor brutal, but it should be engaging, it should be directional, and it should be purposeful. And so that's how, whenever I would bring kids out to the horse to work with the horses, I would train them to overcome their fear by connecting with the horse, and that is really a pretty powerful thing. Even before they get on, just
Yeah.
connect with the horse.
Man, you just do it all. I love it. This is what we call just chasing purpose and not chasing the paychecks.
Right,
Truly, right? Just
right,
sometimes you say yes, you don't know why, but then it just starts to grow, and that's really because it's just really purpose driven, you know.
right.
So I definitely appreciate you that for that, man, and really kind of want to, as we start closing this off, is talking more on what you would love to do. You know, from living the systems to breaking barriers. Now you're wanting to just build these leaders. And you're doing with the youth as we talked about, youth development, the most urgent investment in any community that we can actually make, and you can also attest to that.
Right.
Why do you think it's so important?
Because tomorrow, I used to work at a school, and this is why I think it's important. Because kids will leave school in the 12th grade, they've been through a system, and then what? What
Hmm.
happens the next year? And I think for me, if there's no one preparing them for the then what, that impacts society, and they've gone through these programs or gone through a school, and it's not prepared them to be a successful adult. There's an impact on society. And I think it's a sad commentary that we spend so much time with kids in school and they're just not ready. And that wasn't the case when I went to school. You still had the opportunity to make bad choices, but I was ready for adulthood when I left the
Hmm.
school. I needed to figure out what I needed to do, but I was ready. And I think that's why it's so important to me. That's why good programming is important, because what happens when the kid leaves us is a testament of our effectiveness.
Can we talk to before get into that blind question? Can we also talk to, because I think you could really give some advice to those business owners that could really um, help nonprofits break ceilings, right? Could
Right,
we talk about how they can do that? Let's. So many people think nonprofit and they just don't think past the word nonprofit.
right.
And I think business-minded people bring so much value to the
They
nonprofit
do.
world.
The way I look at it, and I leave this on my desk, you see, I don't even really like the term nonprofit. I like for impact. And I
Love
and
it.
I and I think what's important about that, it should not, if I'm going to make a big impact, I need additional resources,
Hmm.
whether it's through earned income, whether it's through donations or grants, it doesn't matter. It really should be about how can we make the biggest impact? And so you have to run, in many ways, you have to invest your dollars. In many ways, you have to make the right choices that are based upon impact, not passion and feelings. And so I think what business people do, they make decisions that are good for the company business wise. It just, for us, that business decision is about impacting people. and we want to run a profitable nonprofit because that's how we're going to make a big impact. I think we just have to shift our mindset. You have to have the right people. I would say the best people. So that means you might have to pay a little more, which means you might have to work harder on the back end to be able to raise the funds to pay the people what they deserve.
Yeah. But once you pay that person what they deserve, it's like you're going to make the money back,
That's
right?
exactly right. That's exactly right.
So I sometimes, yeah, you got to put up a little money, but the results speak for itself
That's
on
exactly
long
right.
term when you start to see the increase. So
Yep.
that's that business mindset, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's all about investing. It's
Yeah.
really it's about investing in your people, investing in that person, and it's counting on getting the return and a
Yeah.
larger return than what you put in.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, Dwayne, before we get in the hot seat, which I got a really good question for you, where can people find you? Are you on LinkedIn? If you can give the socials as well to the organization so people can also know where to kind of see some of the work you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. Just Google, or not Google, but look up Duane Wilson, Boys and Girls
Google,
Club.
you okay now,
Yeah.
Dwayne?
Yeah, I do kind of show up in different places. But also, I have my own consulting website too, which is SOAR, SOAR, consultingservices.com. That's another place to find me. And I'm not real big on some of the other ones, but you can also, our social media is Boys and Girls Club, Northern Indiana Corridor. Of course, we're on LinkedIn, our website, bgcnic.org, as well as I think we have Snapchat, all of the social medias, because we got very young people who know how to do all of that, pushing all
I
that
love
stuff
it.
out for us. So,
I love it, man. I love it. Well, I'll leave you with this question. I think you would really enjoy this question. If you could take one of your kids from the club on a plane tomorrow, anywhere in the world that you lived, where would you actually take them first and why?
that's easy. I would take them to Egypt.
Why? Why Egypt?
I would take them to Egypt because what I when I was in Egypt, I didn't realize that was Africa until
Mm,
I ended up meeting a Sudanese gentleman, and it's like being in Africa and then seeing the breadth of what's there in Egypt. In Africa, I met some Sudanese because Sudan is south of Egypt. I just learned so much about people, the region. I saw the influence. I went to Alexandria, Egypt, and so I saw the impact of Rome, and the European influence there. I just think it's a great place to really think through the
okay.
world and see it from a totally different perspective. It's on Africa and it's not impoverished. I mean, there's some impoverished areas of Egypt, don't get me wrong. But I mean, everywhere there's that. But I just
Yeah.
think that's the one that made me say, "Huh," about a lot of different things.
Have you been back since?
I have not been back.
Yeah. I'm a big believer if people can see any other country outside of the US, that there'll be more grateful people here in
Yes,
America.
absolutely.
Because I've been able to travel to other countries and South Africa being one, and I would always remember just one how I was treated by other people, right?
Right.
That how they accepted me within their country,
Yeah.
and just how kind they were, how respectful these, because I was facilitating, I was doing classes out there, and just how kind they were.
Right.
And even though they didn't have, this is a country that, or at least a location that for 4 hours a day they will lose electricity. So I'm teaching in the dark at times,
Wow.
but you know what? That's how they lived, and they were
Yep.
still happy people.
Absolutely.
Even when they didn't have much to eat, they still came in. They were very respectful. They wanted to learn. They just wanted an opportunity. And sometimes I think that we don't. We're a little bit ungrateful at times, the way. And I
Yes,
just think
I
we're a
would
little.
agree.
I mean,
I would
from the
agree.
water. I always, bring up this story. I would never forget when he's like, Ephraim, why do you bring a brand new water bottle every day to class? I mean, that's what I do here in America, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? You have a water bottle? Kind of jokingly say it. I said, don't you drink water every day? He's like, yeah, but I have to fill it from the tap. Then I got to put it in the fridge so it feels like I'm drinking cold water. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh, so yeah, I love that you were able to kind of throw it in that Egypt. And I just hope that people can experience just another country at times,
Yes.
because I think we'll see more people shift the mindset on what it actually looks like for our own lives, right? The way that we
Absolutely.
also move. But the way we could be doing this for a long time, man, I really appreciate it. You have a blind question for the next leader?
Yes, I do. For the next leader, if you were a kitchen appliance, which one would you be and why?
That is so good. I love that you put a little comedy into that one. I don't know if I've ever had that one, but I'm definitely excited to hear what somebody's response is going to be to that one. That's definitely going to throw them off.
Yeah.
But Dwayne, man, we definitely thank you for one, the your service. 11 years. Thank you so much. That wasn't easy. We thank you for the work that you're doing for our young men and women in your community. That's definitely, we plant seeds today and maybe never ever see them grow, but just know that you're doing the work, man, that a lot of people sometimes forget they got to do. We got to pour back into the next generation.
That's right.
It's not about us anymore, Dwayne.
That is so
And
true.
you're realizing it, man. So thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank
This
you.
is the type of conversations that I just truly love to have here on the Heart and Hustle. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys do like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one. My name's
All right.
Efrain. This is Dwayne. We'll talk to you later.
Bye
Bye.
now.